How pleased was I to find out I was the last person on today. So, I really should have had the subtitle here, which was hanging in the coattails, because I feel that's what it's like. But it was actually quite an opposite title to have, because we are in the coattails of colleagues in Edinburgh and East Lothian in many ways, and I'll come back to that in a moment and explain why. Where is Fife just now? As Irene was saying, I think we're probably closer to the position that most of you will be in if you're involved in planning. Our plan was adopted, our LDP, first LDP was adopted last month, only a couple of weeks ago. It was a long journey. We started 5 years ago. We had a second MIR stage because of changes in the strategic development plan. We had budgeted for a 9-month examination, but we ended up with a 15-month examination and a much bigger bill than we had expected, which for finance colleagues will understand that none of that was budgeted for, and nowhere was it accommodated in my own development plan budget. And then in February we thought we were all ready and set to go, and then the ministers advised us, well, we'll take a wee bit longer than our 28 days to advise you not to we're not going to call in the plan or anything, and it actually took us until probably about July, towards the end of July, before we found out we could adopt a plan. But even then we didn't adopt it because there were some challenges rumbling in the background. But these were challenges which I think we have hopefully turned to our advantage, and again I'll come to that in a minute. As part of the discussion, and before we adopted the LDP, I had a chat with colleagues in Scottish Government, Carrie Thompson in particular, and we chat around what would satisfy a minister's direction. You were given a direction not to adopt a plan until we'd addressed a couple of issues. Some of them were just technical matters to do with a proposal, all of which we'd agreed at committee anyway, so it was going to happen. But the key one was about how is this plan going to be delivered? And this was in the back of representations from house builders in particular, but other landowners and other development interests about, is this plan going to be deliverable? How are you going to get there? And do you have a robust mechanism that would satisfy the Minister that what you have said you're going to do, you are going to do? And we've said, yes, we do, and we wanted to explain how that was going to work. In the meantime, we've got the planning review going in the background. We have I've just highlighted some of the proposals that were coming out of the position statement in June. Of those, I think the ones that are key to what we are working on at the moment is the community planning side, community planning, bringing that in closer alignment to the development planning process, and also delivering LDPs. The others are relevant as well, but these for me are the key ones. Also, where we are just now, and it maybe comes back to the point I was making when I was asking Paul the question, why haven't we all got to where Edinburgh is now? Because it's not rocket science. But just after the position statement was published, I'd gone along to the Fife Partnership Executive Group. That's really the exec group for the Fife Community Plan, or the Local Outcome Improvement Plan, our LOIP. I explained what was going on, because planning has traditionally, and I suspect still is in many places, planning is seen as a planning department activity. I think we're seeing good signs now that there's a visibility of planning beyond the planning department. The LDP, I've been banging on about this for years since local plans were produced. Local plans and local development plans are still largely seen as something the planning department does, just as sometimes the local housing strategy is something the housing department does. It's all the same thing. To communities out there, when we speak to people, when you speak to communities for consultation and engagement and things that are going to happen in their area, you're the council, you're all the one people, you all work together, and that's the key point. But internally, I think there has still to be a bit of a shift in culture and attitude. So the LDP and development planning and the planning process has to be seen and much more closely aligned to corporate working. At the end of that meeting, that executive group meeting I was mentioning, our chief executive chaired Steve Grimmond, he said, planning's not visible in any of this, and I think that's, I'm thinking, the penny's dropping. I think we're now getting there, and we'll get something to work on. Fife's issues will be a variation on the issues that you have. The LOIP is being developed. It's out for consultation just now. It's helpfully called Plan for Fife, whereas our LDP is called Fife Plan. So there is some sort of alignment going on there, not what we anticipated, and we're already getting mixed phone calls and consultations on these. But both Robin Presswood, Head of Service, and Pam Ewan, who's the planning manager, they have worked hard to kind of push the message that we've been going on about for ages, that planning is part of all of this and it's important and it has to be recognised in some way at that community planning level. So strategic growth is now recognised and now explicitly mentioned as part of the local outcome improvement plan for Fife. That's part of the LOIP. We're also working on planning obligations. We've been working on that for a while. We've had various versions out in the past. We have a revised draft out at the moment. We're about to submit that after the plan. Now that the plan's adopted, we're about to submit that to ministers as a final version of obligations. And the relationship there, I don't have to talk about that because Kate did that earlier on, talking about the relationship between delivery and how you do it. Homes for Scotland, we're looking at maybe making a challenge to the plan. Their concern was around the same points that were being raised by the Minister, and perhaps why the Minister was raising these points about how are you going to deliver all of this housing. And where we've got to, I think, is a good sign in collaboration. We will be working with Homes for Scotland in implementing our plan, not just through their individual members, but we want to look at how can we identify this space in front of us, what the problems are, what the issues are. How can we work together to solve the problems, overcome the barriers, deal with all these matters which we talk about a lot. We're often on the opposite side of tables, at meetings or at examination hearings or whatever, but how can we actually work together, because we're all trying to do the same thing. There's an interesting side part to this, which is we have to always keep in mind how do the communities perceive this, because we are all doing the same things. We're steering a fairly neutral line in this, but I think there's something there we have to keep an eye on. Somebody mentioned, I think it was Paul, somebody mentioned education. I suspect everybody, I won't ask a show of hands, but I suspect everybody one way or another will have discussions with colleagues on education and in the school estate. Fife is certainly no different, and that was part of the big challenge that was coming from the house building industry. There wasn't consent on sites that are allocated, but they can't deliver because, among other things, they can't get the schools in time in order to support the development, or the timing of how we pay for those schools, the delivery mechanism, the delivery part of it hasn't been teed up and is not going to work. So the capacity, timing and how we pay for the schools is a key issue. We also had discussions around transportation and other infrastructure, but those weren't quite so as acute as education issues. So, building the consensus. Where are we just now? What are we trying to do? We are, first of all, getting the plan and getting strategic growth identified, the benefits of that, getting that identified in the LOIP, I think is a first key stage for us. It gives us a hook to go back to that same corporate group, dealing with the LOIP and report on an annual basis, and where we are with the LDP, and where corporately all council services departments play into that. So if planning is now visible in the LOIP, I think that was a great thing for us, a great place to start. We're also explaining the benefits and the advantages of strategic growth in terms of additional community or council tax revenue for the council, but also has implications. And Kate was talking about understanding revenue, and we were hearing about the finance concerns, and financial officers will be concerned about what's the revenue implication, revenue costs coming out of growth, because we're talking about new schools, but we're also talking about many more bin collections, we're talking about many more school places and the school estate being funded and all that comes with it. So all of these things are interconnected, and it's making those points clear. So we now have the plan for Fife, the LOIP, and we're consulting on that. The key thing now is starting to align all of these different processes. We are not quite where colleagues in Edinburgh are on that yet. I think we will get there step by step, and it's going to be a step change in order to do that. One of the ways we intend to do that is through our action programme, so that it becomes a delivery programme. And I'll come back to that in a moment. But aligning the processes is absolutely critical. Getting that thinking together, changing the attitudes, raising the awareness is absolutely critical and central to everything we're doing here. We're not there quite yet. We have interim stages being set up. Fife has a great many boards across the council for different subjects and topics. Some are to do with planning, some finance, some other matters. I think what we're starting to see now is an understanding that in order to get to where we are and build this consensus and work across boundaries and work across services and budgets and remits and institutional boundaries sometimes, is that we need to have a governance mechanism around that. There are signs that is starting to happen. I think we need to maintain a momentum in that so we don't lose that, because there's always a risk of backsliding. Our light, for example, started off to be the word innovative. Ben mentioned that earlier on. It's an easy word to throw around. The innovation that started is maybe slid back a wee bit, if I'm being honest about it. But I think there's scope to recover that. So the next practical step for us, I've touched on it, is looking at the action programme and turning that into something else. It's making that a delivery programme so that we can track progress on the LDP and its proposals and policies, but let's work around the proposals first of all. Understand what the risks are of either the proposed developments not coming on stream on time, or of not happening, or of something changing. Looking at the reasons why they are not happening and trying to identify and cost, that's the important thing, and cost the solutions. We're not dealing with this on our own. I've mentioned the discussions with Homes for Scotland. We want them to be part of that, and maybe through them getting involved with Scottish Futures Trust, trying to find different ways to operate, different ways to find these solutions. We're working with the Scottish Government, and Eric Dawson sitting at the back there, we had our first meeting last week on being one of the pilots, looking at testing what a delivery programme will be for the planning review. And we're in the process of a peer review, and this is where it's riding the coattails bit comes back in again, because colleagues, some of my team were down speaking to Kate and Andy Stewart from East Lothian yesterday to understand where they are and how they've done things, so that we can learn from that and adapt to find a solution that's appropriate for Fife, because we are quite a bit behind. So the delivery programme is going to be about a number of things. It will be about informing the capital programme, because we've got to get to that stage. It will be about taking account of other funding sources that are there. We've talked about City Deal today. Fife's got 2 City Deals to deal with, same as it had. It's got 2 strategic development plan areas. Seeing how the financial obligations and the planning obligations work, tweaking that, adjusting that as we go through as we develop our delivery programme for the LDP. Oh, have I touched something on there? Thank you. The governance part is absolutely essential. The corporate governance I talked about, getting to a position where we're all speaking in the same place. We don't have that yet, but we have a first step around schools. It's a short-term 3-month basis for working corporately, but I'm hoping that's the first step. Benefits are shown from that, and we move on and we get towards a model which is going to be closer to what's been developed in Edinburgh and East Lothian and elsewhere. The peer review part of it and is looking at good practice elsewhere, how we will undertake annual monitoring, how we display, how we present this information to people. If it's a business plan, it's got to be understandable, not to technocrats, not just to those that are in the game. It's got to be understandable to the communities that are affected. They've got to be able to look at this and say, right, the LDP said that, you've raised all these expectations, where are you? And do it in a manner which is visible, clear, easily updated, all of those things. It can't be a burden. And all of this, all the technical stuff can lie in the background. But we've got to present a fairly clear and simple picture. So that's what we want to try and do, and we'll pick up, say, we'll beg, borrow, steal ideas from anybody and adapt them and claim them as our own from anybody out there. And in addition to Edinburgh and East Lothian, we'll be speaking to Highlands, started a discussion there already, and we'll be looking at good practice elsewhere. So any ideas, speak to Eric, or come to me, and we'll try and work something in, because I think we all have to learn from each other here. planning is a small world. Scotland is a small country, so I think we have to try and make the best of the skills and the knowledge that we have. We're on the curve. Edinburgh's quite a way up the curve, I think. With all due respect, you would acknowledge you're not quite there yet, but you're well on the way. We heard we're 6 years behind at very least, and I suspect most of us will be around the bottom of that curve as well. So that's where we are. I'm not trying to bring you down to earth with a banger, because I think there's good practice here. I think we will develop this, and I think this is a good news story, because from what I've been hearing, from what was said this morning, and I'm sorry I missed that, but from what I've heard this morning, I think all the seeds have been planted. We'll maybe start to see some fruit being born out of all this over the next couple of years. So thank you for that.